We're on week 4 of our Words of Prayer series. The first week we looked at how the word help gets echoed to God in so many different ways. People crying out for help to God, and it's our job very often to answer those prayers of justice. And then we looked at all the times in our own lives when all we could say to God was, wow, the world is full of beauty and awe. And last week, we looked at all the sorts of ways we can pray without words, with actions of compassion and engagement and stewardship. And this week, we turn back to words like this, with probably the most common prayer we ever say. The most common prayer we ever say. When I'm with groups of teenagers, one of my favorite ways to pray is we get in a circle and we all hold hands, which is really easy for the 10th grade girls, not so much for the 6th grade boys. And when we're in a circle, we build a prayer together 3 words at a time. So the first person, usually me, I get to start with 3 words of a sentence, Dear God, we, and then the next person continues with something like, come to say, and then the next person gets 3 more words, that we love you, and because that's an 8th grade boy, they didn't follow directions, and there's 4 words in there, but we just go with it. We forgive. But when they do follow directions, when everyone works together, whether it's kids or adults, far and away the most common thing that happens in that circle is people say thank you. Thank you for today and yesterday, and thank you for cell phones, thank you for food, and it goes kind of like that. I've done this exercise at least 100 times in all different churches and camps that I've worked with, at least 10 to 25 kids in every circle, so you can do the math on how many kids and adults have prayed in that circle. And in that whole time, one girl named Rachel, she prayed for forgiveness. About 5 or 6 times, people prayed for help in some kind of situation in the world. Half of those were when we were in Haiti. Otherwise, 99.9% of those is some version of people saying, thank you, God. Which might be great theology. The quote on the cover of your bulletin says that's the first and last step of how to approach God. Thank you. Or maybe I'm just witnessing a lot of good parenting because you teach your kids to send thank you notes to grandma, and so then they say thank you to God, Grandma, God. Or it might be that some of us just don't know what else to say because talking to God can be kind of spooky and unnatural. And so what we can do is we can say thanks because that's just us talking. We don't have to include some complicated sense of God. Or maybe it's just something built in us. We are the kind of creatures that our souls reach toward gratitude. And we're just those kind of creatures. Dogs are loyal and fun. Cats are evil and lazy. Some disagreement over there. But humans might be the sort of creatures that respond to being created in a beautiful creation by saying thank you. Whatever the reasons that lead us there, when it comes to thanking God, formal prayer is one way to do that. Great way to do it, not the only way. We can offer thanks by changing something about ourselves, about our behavior. When people go through these major crises in their life and they make it out the other side, oftentimes, as a thankful response, they shift something about who they are. Or maybe they decide to help out other people who have gone through that crisis or in that crisis. And that's their way to say thank you, is to come back into that darkness. Or maybe when it comes to thanking the people who God put in your life, just think about all the people, the family, the friends, the circles like this, the community, the enemies you've had, in big ways and small ways, in tactile ways, in soul-changing ways. Think of all the ways that they have affected your life. And Jesus thanked God by thanking those people who followed him and helped shape the earliest movement. He said, you did a great job of following what we wanted on this path. You did a fantastic job following this purpose. So thank you. I want you to know that we're in this together. That's what Jesus said to them. It's great to be co-workers, but we're friends too. So thank you for what you do and for who you are. And if we are to follow Jesus' example, we can thank God by thanking the people who make this community what it is. So we can say, Anastasia, thank you for bringing your violin so often to church and for being a good friend to Allison. We can say, Kiana, thank you for when you have a smile on your face, your hair just goes like this and it's like making music. Thank you, Kimball's. The book club, they get all year to bond together, and you come right in there and you add stuff without messing anything up. You're just there and you help everything out. Thank you to Bob and Kathy and those friends. They just proved to you that by inviting your friends to church, they can actually come. Look at that. Thank you, Tamra, for always, if you're really quiet, you can hear the clock back there. And that clock is kind of an ancient relic of this church. And Tamara is the one who winds that. So she's the one who connects us to that past. Thank you, Tricia, for encouraging us to sing good praise music. I think next week we get to do one. Thank you, Wes, for being involved in every aspect of this church. Is there a group in the church that Wes isn't part of? I don't know it. Thank you, Bob and Carol. Not only are you summer people, but you sneak back in the wintertime and you help us remember that a lot of the summer people are still around in their homes, and we can help remember them. Linda and Robert, thank you for the excitement. When you showed up this summer and I saw you at the coffee shop, you were just thrilled to be there. David, thank you for your prayers of peace. I get to hang out with him all during the day. He just kind of stops by and we get to pray and talk about how things are going. Betty, thank you for welcoming so many people in this church. Judy, thank you for what you've done at the food pantry every time it's there with the kids in this church in the past. Jadine, thank you for being just honest as can be and trying to change the world every step you can. Never giving up on that. Russ, thank you for never letting us go away with one or two perspectives, but always shining different angles on everything. Bushes, thank you for making this place such a commitment in your life. How long have you been part of Netherlands Circle? Quite a while. Many years. Harpers, thank you for sneaking in to this Nederland world because the weather was so beautiful that you drove up from Boulder for today. Sally, thank you for when you show up in the summertime, I'm then allowed to say of God, she really likes this place. And Schubert, thank you. For the minute you get here, you can sneak up in choir whenever you want to sing a good song, and you can tell me whenever I said something silly in a sermon. Hubbard, the Hubbards back there, they have done every job between the two of them in this entire church. The big ones and then the little ones. The big ones and the little ones. So thank you for that. Jan, thank you for bringing music into this place and making these walls just sing for years and years. Earl and Nicolette, thank you for visiting from just down the road. If we don't have visitors, what are we doing here? Gary, thank you for all that you do with publishing the bulletins and the newsletters and all the organization that you help and the compassion that you push us toward. Just like your wife, Pat, who has ran the deacons for many years and helped connect our giving to people who were really in need. Bob and Cinda, we're going to do a little combo because they're married. And thank you guys for helping me be able to talk to y'all about controversial issues in the church and the world. They're my neighbors, so sometimes I'll just wander up the hill, sit there on the front porch or back porch, and we'll talk about, guns or church or God knows what would make some people argue, and we can just do it somehow. Dennis, thank you for representing our church in about 47 different ways around this town and turning on the microphone every Sunday before I know it. He's in there turning it. Amy, thank you for taking on VBS that starts tomorrow. That's great. And tell your kids thank you for drawing little pictures and picking out stoles. And Jeremy, thank you for coming in and making sure that our children are safe in this church. And you've contributed to that. Nelson's, thank you for giving the meals to the kids at Rocky Mountain Mission and making that a hospitable place. Frank, thank you in your prayers to bring us always to a knowledge that the world is so much larger than this place. Susan, I don't know what Jesus would do with Susan, because there's not a hypocritical bone in her body. I mean, she just embodies genuine spirit, and thank you for that. Nancy, when we had something difficult in this church to deal with, she jumped into session and took an ornery job to make sure that we're doing things accountable around here. Dell, every time that something breaks, he just sneaks in and fixes it. Dell's the guy who can fix stuff. Every family needs a Dell. Violet, thank you for your prayers in hospitals. You don't get to see this all that often, but she'll come into a hospital when someone's really sick and pray over them with Rich. And Rich, thank you for those prayers and for the beauty of your home and the fishing, being able to come down there and invite our children of this town to come and enjoy that. Dean, thanks for what you do with a chainsaw when we had a men's group mission outing. Ray, thank you for having a seat right over there so that after church we can sit down and hear stories during fellowship. Jack comes every week to Bible study with questions. Great questions. That's the way a Bible study should be, with great questions. Rita, I'm glad I got to meet you. If I don't get to meet someone every Sunday who's been connected to this church, it's a miss for me. So thank you for being here. Barbara, if your husband was here, I would say to him, thank you for allowing us to remember how important it is for us to hear each other. But since you're here, I'll say thank you for letting us all remember how important it is to listen to each other. Elizabeth, thank you for your artwork and being able to invite those kids over last summer to have a big bonfire in your house, which was a blast for them. Crystal, thanks for your lifetime of stories. If people haven't heard your chicken story, you just need to have a place over there to tell your chicken story today. Tashina, do you know that almost every person in this church comes in here with a lifetime of baggage about what church means? And our conversations, maybe in that office or somewhere, you have such a pure outlook on what you can learn here, and that's just beautiful. To the entire Snavely Yates crowd, you connect us to this church in a way that no one else can, because your family used to have someone standing right here and helping make this church grow in sensitive times. So thank you for staying connected in that way. Charlene, thank you for bringing 3 generations when your whole family is here. It's so nice to see all of you sitting together. Donna, who's wearing a sticky name tag, she thinks that fellowship is so important we should know each other's names. Thank you for that lesson right there. Linda thinks this church is so swell, she tries to drag everyone in here that she can. She just grabs them off the streets and says, you got to come and check this place out. So thank you for that. Justine, this whole sermon was aimed for you, so we're going to save you for last. Sue, thank you for taking on Stop Hunger Now and all these other projects where you feel engaged in living out God's justice in really wild ways. It's fantastic. David, thank you for, a lot of people in the preacher's life will come up and say, oh, good sermon. And sometimes I want to ask them, like, why? What'd you get out of it? David comes up and says things to me a lot. And my favorite time he ever came up to say anything was when he said, I really didn't like that one. And he told me why, and it helped me be more sensitive to all of your ears. Liz, thank you for your hospitality with book movie groups and with the Rocky Mountain Mission people coming over to your house and starting bonfires. Claudia, thank you for all you do for fellowship, because if it wasn't for fellowship in this church, what are we doing here? Lisa, thank you for your love of all God's creatures everywhere. Betty, thank you for your heartfelt prayers every single week. And Michelle, thank you for showing us all how to embrace your parents as they get older. Wyatt and Dad, thank you for coming with them, because it makes them so happy to have you guys here. And Justine, for how many years Christian Women in Service, or some version of that, have been serving this town? In the news, the news of 100 and something years ago, you heard of these groups of women in town who would put together fruit and peanuts and little candies and give those to the children at Christmas time, and that became a tradition. Christian Women in Service took over that tradition, did so many other things to help people through this town. Other groups, because of what they did, other groups have grown up into food pantries and teen centers, and that's the seed. And we put your seed to rest this week. We did have someone come by this Saturday, I think it was, knocking on the door looking for the bazaar. But thank you, and thank all of Christian Women in Service for all that you've done. Let's give her a hand, too. And if anyone moved around or slunk down in your pew, just turn to your neighbor and you tell them thanks for what they do, that they've done a good job to be part of this community in whatever way that might be. And tell them, I hope your friendship grows. That's part of what this is smiling next to each other. That's such a deep part of what we're doing, is building friendship and community together so that we can answer God's call to serve this little corner of our world. You hear that? We build our friendships and our community together so that we can serve not only what's in these walls, but what's out of these walls in our little corner of what God sent us to do. And I'm telling you, there is no magic formula for building a strong church. The earliest followers of Jesus, they did a few things. They had mission programs for healthcare and for food distribution. We do some of that. They listened to what God had to say in the Scriptures and in their own conversations. We do a lot of that. But mostly they thrived. The closest thing they had to a formula for success is that they would eat dinner together. Just sit around in groups of people and eating dinner together. That's simple and that hard. 2 or 3 gathered together, and the Spirit of Jesus found its way there. And 2,000 years later, this church, we aren't perfect. We have all sorts of shortcomings. There's 100 things we could do to make worship better, to make more mission, to get more people into Bible studies, 1,000 other things. But when we are working at our best, following the example that God set for us, y'all are building community and friendship, often around dinner tables and coffee tables and at bars and backyards. The church has formal groups for doing that, but also I just love when I discover that some people just will have dinner together. Or maybe they'll make a little group and they'll have dinner together. I love finding out about that kind of thing, even when I'm not supposed to know about it. And even when my mentioning it here drives some people crazy because half of you wonder, well, where's my dinner group? Here's how you get a dinner group. Turn to your neighbor, tell them, let's go out to dinner. Let's all say that together. Let's go out to dinner. Yeah, that easy. And half of you, when I tell you a secret like that, you wonder, I wonder what other secrets Hansen knows. I don't really know many secrets about you. But I love that stuff because building community in groups of people who care about each other and want to share their lives together, that is the key for any church, really for any community or family. But that is the key for any church to draw us all closer to God. Worship, this is the heartbeat of God, but fellowship is the life that flows through and gives the Spirit of God room to grow in us and to help us answer the call to serve this little corner of the world better. So thank you for everyone who contributes to this community in all the many ways you do. And maybe if you want to say thanks, a couple people who we really should say thank you to, like Emily plays guitar here and leads the choir so many weeks. Thanks to Wes for doing it today. But there's a card over there for Emily if you want to sign it after worship. Also for John Callahan, who makes sure this building keeps standing up and is clean so that we can all enjoy it and the community can all enjoy it. Sign their cards to say thanks to them. But right now we're going to sing a new song. So new, I've never even sung it. If you hate new songs, well, at least read the lyrics on this and try to think about the people who embody these different lines. If you do sing this song, do the same thing. Let your spirit just pray through that. And may this song of thanksgiving help you to cultivate a spirit of communal generosity so that God might shine brighter through us all. Amen.